I saw my son's car and decided to surprise him for his birthday by hiding in the back seat with his gift. Then he got in with someone who said, "Your pathetic father won't be a problem much longer." I couldn't believe when I saw who was sitting next to him. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Spencer Sullivan, but most folks just call me Spence. At 63, I thought I had seen enough betrayal for one lifetime. I was wrong. It was March 15th, Marcus's 35th birthday, and I had his favorite chocolate cake from Henderson's Bakery sitting in my lap. I'd been waiting in his Honda for 20 minutes, grinning like a schoolboy at my own cleverness. The surprise birthday visit was going to be perfect. Then I heard the footsteps approaching and ducked lower behind the driver's seat, barely containing my excitement. The car door opened and Marcus slid into the driver's seat, but instead of starting the engine, he waited. Another door opened. "Are you sure about this?" a woman's voice asked as she settled into the passenger seat. I almost gasped out loud. It was Vanessa Brooks, his business partner, the same Vanessa I'd helped him hire 2 years ago when I lent him $30,000 to expand his marketing firm. "Positive," Marcus replied, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. The old man signed everything over to me after Mom died. Power of attorney, beneficiary changes, the works. He was so grateful for my help with the paperwork. My blood turned to ice. What paperwork? What changes? "In the house?" Vanessa asked. Marcus chuckled, a sound that made my skin crawl. "Already in my name. He doesn't even know. I told him it was just updating the deed for tax purposes after Mom's death." The cake box trembled in my hands. "My house? The house Natalie and I built together 41 years ago? Your pathetic father won't be a problem much longer," Vanessa said, her voice dripping with contempt. "Once we're married, we'll put him in Sunset Manor. He'll be grateful for the company." Married? My son was engaged, and I had to learn about it by hiding in his car. "The nursing home costs will eat up whatever's left of his savings pretty quickly," Marcus continued matter-of-factly. "But that's not our problem anymore." I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from screaming. This was my son, my baby boy who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms. The child I'd sacrificed everything for after his mother, my Natalie, died 3 years ago. "What if he figures it out?" Vanessa asked. "Vanessa, he won't. Dad trusts me completely, always has. Makes this almost too easy." The engine started, and as they drove away to celebrate his birthday, I sat in stunned silence in the back seat, holding a cake for a son who was planning to throw me away like garbage. But Marcus had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated his pathetic old father. The 20-minute ride to whatever restaurant they'd chosen felt like an eternity. I stayed hidden, my mind racing as I tried to process what I had just heard. When the car finally stopped, I waited until they'd walked away before slipping out and calling a taxi. Back home, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the birthday cake. The same kitchen where I'd taught Marcus to crack eggs without getting shells everywhere, where I'd helped him with homework every night through high school, where I'd cried with him when Natalie passed. How had I missed the signs? How had my devoted son become this stranger? The truth was, I hadn't missed them. I'd just chosen to ignore them. It started right after Natalie's funeral. Marcus had been so helpful, so attentive. "Dad, let me handle the paperwork," he'd said. "You're grieving. You shouldn't have to deal with this financial stuff." I'd been grateful, overwhelmed by loss and drowning in insurance forms, bank documents, and legal papers. I didn't understand. When Marcus offered to help navigate it all, I signed whatever he put in front of me. "Just a formality, Dad. This gives me permission to handle things, if you're ever unable to." That's how he'd explained the power of attorney document. "We need to update the house deed for tax purposes now that Mom's gone." That's how he described transferring my home into his name. I'd trusted him completely. My brilliant, successful son, who ran his own marketing company. Why wouldn't I trust him? The signs had been there, though, the way he'd stopped visiting unless he needed something, how he'd become evasive when I asked about his personal life, the day I'd mentioned wanting to update my will, and he quickly changed the subject. And Vanessa. I should have seen through her fake sweetness from the beginning, the way she'd charm me when she needed something, then barely acknowledge my existence otherwise. I'd even helped pay for her marketing certification courses. My phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. "Hi, son," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hey, Dad. Sorry I missed your call earlier. Vanessa and I were at dinner celebrating my birthday." The casual lie rolled off his tongue so easily. "Oh, that's nice, son. How was it?" "Great. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something. Can I come over tomorrow? There are some financial things we need to discuss." My stomach dropped. "What kind of financial things?" "Just some updates to your accounts. Nothing major, but it's important we handle it soon." "I'll bet it is," I thought. "Of course, son. Whatever you think is best." "Perfect. I'll be there around 10 in a while." And Dad, don't worry about anything, okay? I'm taking care of everything. After he hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my kitchen, Natalie's picture on the mantel watching over me. My wife had always been the suspicious one, the one who questioned people's motives. I had been the trusting one, seeing the best in everyone. Well, Natalie, I whispered to her photo, looks like you were right to worry about people taking advantage of me. But Natalie had also taught me something else. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Marcus had just shown me exactly who he'd become. Now it was time to figure out what I was going to do about it. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Vanessa's voice. Your pathetic father won't be a problem much longer. By 6:00 a.m., I was dressed and ready. If Marcus thought I was just some helpless old man, he was about to learn otherwise. I might be 63, but I wasn't dead yet. My first stop was Henderson's Bakery. Irene Henderson had been my friend for 20 years, ever since her daughter was in my third-grade class. "Spence," she exclaimed when I walked in, "don't tell me Marcus didn't like his chocolate cake. I made it extra special." "Actually, Irene, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." I leaned across the counter. "Has Marcus ever been in here with a young woman? Blonde, early 30s, very put together." Irene's expression shifted. "Well, yes. Several times over the past year, they seemed quite close." "Close how?" She glanced around the empty bakery, then lowered her voice. "Spence, they were holding hands, kissing. Last month they came in looking at wedding cakes." Wedding cakes. The confirmation hit like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. "Did he introduce her as his fiancée?" "I thought it was odd you hadn't mentioned it," Irene admitted. "But I figured maybe it was a surprise or something." "A surprise?" I echoed. That was one way to put it. "Irene, promise me you won't mention this conversation to anyone. Can you do that?" She nodded, concern creasing her features. "Spence, is everything okay?" "It will be," I said, and surprised myself with how much I meant it. My next stop was First National Bank, where I'd done business for 35 years. Linda Peterson, the branch manager, greeted me warmly. "Mr. Sullivan, how can I help you today?" "Linda, I need to review all my accounts, every single one, and I need to know who has access to them." Her smile faltered slightly. "Is there a problem?" "I hope not, but I need to be sure." What Linda showed me made my blood run cold. Marcus wasn't just on my accounts as a co-signer. According to the paperwork I'd apparently signed, he was the primary account holder. I was listed as a secondary party on my own bank accounts. "When did this change happen?" I asked, staring at documents that bore my signature but that I didn't remember signing. She typed, scanned. "About 18 months ago. You and Marcus came in together. You seemed a bit confused about the process, so Marcus explained everything." Confused, that's what they'd call it. When they eventually put me in the nursing home, too. Poor old Spence. So confused about his finances. "Linda, I need copies of everything. Every document, every signature card, every change made to these accounts in the past 3 years." "Of course, Mr. Sullivan. Is there something specific you're concerned about?" I thought about my conversation with Marcus, his casual mention of financial things we needed to discuss, about wedding cakes and nursing homes and how pathetic fathers eventually stop being problems. Let's just say I'm suddenly very interested in understanding my financial situation. As Linda printed the documents, a realization came that should have terrified me, but somehow didn't. I was completely at Marcus's mercy. He controlled my money, my house, probably my entire future. But Marcus had made one crucial error. He'd assumed I would stay ignorant forever. Game on, son. The documents painted a horrifying picture. Over the past 18 months, Marcus had systematically stripped me of control over my own life. My savings account, my checking account, even my CDs moved to his primary control. What really made my hands shake was the insurance paperwork. Natalie's life insurance, the policy that was supposed to provide for me for the rest of my life, had been changed. Marcus was now the sole beneficiary. I sat in my truck in the bank parking lot, studying page after page of my own signature. Some I remembered, most I didn't. All looked legitimate. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Running a few minutes late, Dad. See you at 10:30 instead." Perfect. Extra time for me to prepare for our little financial discussion. At home, I spread these papers across the dining room table. The same table where we'd eaten birthday dinners and holiday meals, where Marcus used to do his homework while I graded papers, where Natalie and I had planned our retirement. I called my old friend Ruth Miller. If anyone would know how to handle this situation, it was Ruth. She'd lived through her own family drama when her stepson tried to contest her husband's will. "Spence, you sound strange. What's wrong?" I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the bank documents, the power of attorney I didn't remember giving in full. "Oh, honey," Ruth breathed when I finished. This is elder financial abuse. It's more common than people think, and sadly, it's usually family. What can I do? First, you need a lawyer, someone who specializes in elder law. Second, document everything. Third, be very careful. If Marcus realizes you're on to him, he might accelerate his timeline. Accelerate how? The nursing home, Spence. Once you're declared incompetent or moved to a care facility, it becomes much harder to challenge these arrangements. Ruth gave me the name of an attorney. I stared at Marcus's senior photo on the mantel. Honor roll student, Eagle Scout, business degree from State University that Natalie and I had sacrificed to pay for. When had my ambitious, achieving son become this calculating stranger? The doorbell rang at exactly 10:30. I quickly gathered the papers and locked them in Natalie's old filing cabinet, then went to answer the door. Hi, Dad. Marcus leaned in to kiss my cheek. I had to force myself not to flinch. He looked handsome and successful in a navy suit, briefcase in hand, like he was conducting a business meeting, which I supposed he was. Coffee, son? I asked, leading him to the living room. Sure, thanks. He settled into my old armchair and popped open the briefcase. So I wanted to talk to you about some changes we need to make to your financial setup. Oh? I sat across from him, hands folded in my lap, the picture of an agreeable aging father. Your accounts are getting complicated to manage. I think it would be simpler if we consolidated everything into one account that I handle completely. That way you don't have to worry about balancing checkbooks or keeping track of multiple statements. Don't have to worry. How considerate. And there's something else, he continued. Vanessa and I are getting married. I arranged my face into an expression of surprised delight. Marcus, how wonderful. When? Next month. Small ceremony, just immediate family. Immediate family. Did that include me, or had I already been written off as too pathetic to matter? We've been looking at houses, he said. Found the perfect place, but we'll need to free up some capital for the down payment. Here it comes. I was thinking we could sell this place. It's way too big for you now, and the maintenance costs are getting expensive. There's a lovely senior community across town, much more appropriate for someone your age. Someone my age? I repeated carefully. Not a nursing home yet, but getting closer. I don't know, son. This house has so many memories. His expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Dad, you need to be practical. You can't live here forever. What happens when you can't manage the stairs? When you need help with daily activities? I feel fine now, but we need to plan for the future. Trust me. I know what's best. The arrogance in those 4 words took my breath away. I know what's best. Not what's best for me, what's best for him. Well, I said slowly, I suppose I should think about it. Something flickered across his face. Impatience, frustration. There's not much to think about, Dad. The housing market is good right now. If we wait too long, we might miss our opportunity. Our opportunity, as if selling my home were a joint venture we were undertaking together. Let me consider it for a few days, I said. His jaw tightened. A few days might be too long. The house Vanessa and I want won't stay on the market forever. And there it was. The real timeline. Not my comfort, not my needs, but Marcus and Vanessa's house hunting schedule. I understand, son, but this is a big decision. He snapped the briefcase shut, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Fine, but don't wait too long, Dad. Sometimes opportunities don't come around twice. As I walked him to the door, I realized he was right about one thing. Opportunities don't come around twice. And he'd just given me mine. After Marcus left, I sat in my chair and called the attorney Ruth had recommended. Attorney Patricia Webb specialized in elder law and had seen dozens of cases like mine. Mr. Sullivan, Patricia said after listening, based on what you're telling me, we need to act quickly. Can you come in this afternoon? 2 hours later, I sat in Patricia's office watching her review the bank documents with growing concern. This is sophisticated, she said finally. Your son didn't just take advantage of your grief, he systematically planned this over months. Is there anything I can do? Possibly. We can challenge the power of attorney, argue you weren't competent to sign due to grief and emotional distress. We can also file for elder abuse, both financial and emotional. But you need to understand something important. What's that? Once we start, your relationship with Marcus will be permanently damaged. Family cases like this destroy families. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the conversation I'd overheard in the car, about Vanessa calling me pathetic, about Marcus planning to put me away. Patricia, what relationship? He's already decided I don't matter. Then let's make sure you matter very much. She slid a small device across the desk. One-party consent state. If he pushes again, record everything. Meanwhile, we'll start building your case. As I drove home, I passed Sunset Manor, the place where Marcus imagined I'd spend my final years. I studied the small windows, the residents sitting on the porch in wheelchairs. Not if I have anything to say about it. But first, I needed one more conversation with Vanessa. It was time to meet my future daughter-in-law properly. Finding Vanessa's address was easier than expected. Marcus's marketing company website listed both partners, complete with professional headshots and contact information. Vanessa Brooks lived in a trendy downtown loft, the kind of place that cost more per month than I used to make in 6 months of teaching. I parked across the street and waited. Patricia had advised me to document everything, to build a complete picture of Marcus and Vanessa's relationship and financial dealings. If they were planning to steal my money, I wanted to know exactly how they were spending it. At 11:30 a.m., Vanessa emerged in a designer workout outfit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She climbed into a brand new BMW convertible and headed toward the upscale part of town. I followed. First stop, Prestige Fitness Center, where monthly memberships started at $300. She spent 2 hours there, then met a friend for lunch at Romano's, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. As I watched her laugh and order wine at noon on a Tuesday, I wondered where the money was coming from. Marcus's marketing firm was successful, but not BMW and luxury lunches successful. Not unless he had other income, like access to his father's life savings. That afternoon, I drove by the house Marcus and Vanessa supposedly wanted to buy. The real estate sign was still up. I copied down the agent's number and made a call. Yes, the agent confirmed cheerfully. They're very interested buyers, but there have been some delays with financing. They're waiting on some family money to come through. Should be resolved in a few weeks. Family money, my money. That evening, Marcus called to check in, his voice warm, practiced. How are you feeling about our conversation yesterday, Dad? I've been thinking about what you said, about selling the house. I took a deep breath, playing my role. You're right, son, this place is too big for me. Maybe it's time to downsize. The relief in his voice was unmistakable. I'm so glad you're being reasonable. I was worried you might be stubborn. Stubborn. As though wanting to keep my own home was some kind of defect. When would you want to list it? I asked. Soon. I'll call a realtor tomorrow. We'll want to price it competitively for a quick sale. A quick sale, of course. Can't have me changing my mind. Or worse, thinking it through properly. And Dad, I've been looking into that senior community I mentioned. Sunshine Gardens. They have a lovely one-bedroom available. I could take you to see it this weekend. Sunshine Gardens. I'd already looked it up. Expensive, isolated, with terrible reviews. Residents complained about poor food, indifferent staff, feeling abandoned. That sounds nice, son. Perfect. And there's one more thing. I'll need you to sign some papers when I come over Friday, just to get the process started. More papers, more of my life to sign away. Of course, son. Whatever you think is best. After hanging up, I sat at the kitchen table making a list. Every lie Marcus had told, every manipulation, every document I'd signed without fully understanding, every dollar he'd moved out of my control. By the time I finished, it filled 3 pages. Natalie's photo watched me from the mantel. I could almost hear her voice. That boy is not the son we raised. She was right. The son we raised would never have stolen from his father, would never have planned to abandon me in a second-rate facility, would never have called me pathetic behind my back. But Marcus had made one critical error. He assumed I was still the same trusting, grieving widower who'd signed anything he put in front of me. Friday couldn't come soon enough. Friday arrived with unseasonable warmth for March. I'd been awake since 5, checking and double-checking the recording device Patricia had given me. Smaller than my thumb, invisible once tucked into my shirt pocket. Just press this button to start recording, she'd explained. Battery lasts 4 hours. Sound quality's excellent. At exactly 10:00 a.m., Marcus arrived, briefcase in hand, wearing his most charming smile. Morning, Dad. Beautiful day, isn't it? Lovely, I agreed, leading him into the dining room. Coffee, please. He settled into his usual chair, opened the briefcase with practiced efficiency. I brought those papers I mentioned. I pressed record as I poured his coffee. What kind of papers? Just some updates to your financial arrangements, plus the paperwork to list the house. He spread documents across the table. Sign here, here, and here. I picked up the first page, pretending to read carefully. It was a power of attorney revision that would give him even more control over my affairs. This seems very comprehensive. Dad, it needs to be. And I have to be honest, I'm concerned about your memory. You've seemed confused lately about financial matters. Confused, that word again. Have I? Yesterday when I called, you didn't remember our conversation about the realtor, and last week you asked me the same question 3 times. I hadn't done any of those things, but I could see where he was steering this. Oh dear, I hadn't noticed. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to people our age. That's why we need these legal protections in place now, while you're still competent to sign. While I'm still competent. The implication was clear, soon I wouldn't be. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you stealing from me? The question hung in the air. His face cycled through surprise, anger, then wounded incredulity. Dad, how can you ask that after everything I've done for you? I went to the bank. Linda showed me my accounts. You moved all my money into accounts where I'm not the primary holder. His jaw tightened. I explained this already. It's for your protection. Protection from what? From yourself. The mask slipped. Dad, you're not thinking clearly anymore. Last month, you nearly got scammed by that phone call about your car warranty. If I hadn't been managing things, you could have lost everything. I had never received such a call. But his lie rolled off his tongue with ease. And Vanessa? I asked. What about her? Are you two engaged? Another flicker of surprise. We've discussed it. Why? I just think it's interesting. You're getting married, buying a house, and putting me in a nursing home all at the same time. Convenient timing. Marcus set down his coffee cup. Dad, no one is putting you anywhere. We're finding you a nice place where you'll be safe, cared for. Sunset Manor, it's very well regarded. I'd already called Sunset Manor. They had a waiting list, but Marcus Sullivan had put down a deposit. Move-in date, April 1st. When did you put down the deposit, Marcus? His face went still. What deposit? The deposit at Sunset Manor for April 1st. Silence stretched. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold. How did you find out about that? Does it matter? He leaned forward. For the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own son. Dad, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Making what harder? The transition. You can't live here anymore. You can't manage your own affairs. The sooner you accept that, the easier it'll be for everyone. Everyone meaning you and Vanessa. He stood abruptly. Vanessa has nothing to do with this. Really? Because I followed her yesterday. Nice BMW, expensive gym, pricey lunches. Where's the money coming from, Marcus? The question hit its mark. His face flushed red. You followed her? That's stalking. That proves you need supervised care. I need supervised care because I discovered my son is stealing from me. I'm not stealing anything. He slammed his hand on the table. I jumped. This money was always going to be mine eventually. I'm just managing it more efficiently. There it was, the truth. Efficiently, I repeated. Yes. Do you know what it costs to care for an elderly parent? Nursing home fees would eat through your savings in 3 years. This way, we preserve the family wealth while ensuring you get the care you need. Family wealth. My life savings had become family wealth that needed preserving. Sign the papers, Dad. Let me handle everything. You won't have to worry about anything anymore. I looked at him, this stranger wearing my son's face, and felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That had already broken when I heard him call me pathetic. This was deeper, the severing of the cord that had bound us since the day he was born. No, I said quietly. No what? No, I won't sign the papers. No, I won't sell my house. And no, I won't go quietly into a nursing home so you and Vanessa can live off my money. His mask fell away completely. You don't have a choice. I already have power of attorney. I can declare you incompetent. Can you? Yes. And after today, stalking Vanessa, making paranoid accusations, that's exactly what I'll do. I smiled then, for the first time in weeks. Marcus, there's something you should know. What's that? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the recording device, still running. I've been recording our entire conversation. Color drained from his face. You can't do that. Actually, I can. Single-party consent state. You taught me that when you studied business law. He stared at the device like it was a snake. Delete it, Dad. Now. I don't think so. If you don't, I'll have you declared incompetent tomorrow. Go ahead. I'll be interested to see how a judge reacts when they hear you admit to stealing my money for efficiency purposes. We stared at each other across the table, 35 years of fatherhood dissolving into pure antagonism. Finally, he gathered his papers and stood. This isn't over. No, I said, still smiling. It's just getting started. After Marcus left, I sat in my kitchen, shaking. Not from fear. This time it was adrenaline. I had stood up to him. I had fought back, and it felt incredible. I called Patricia immediately. Mr. Sullivan, how did it go? I got everything. He admitted to stealing my money, to planning to put me in a nursing home, to abusing power of attorney. It's all on tape. Excellent. Can you come in Monday morning? We need to move quickly now that he knows you're aware of his plans. After hanging up, I realized Marcus was right about one thing. This was just getting started. If he was desperate enough to threaten incompetency proceedings, he wouldn't hesitate to escalate further. I needed allies, and I needed them fast. My first call was to Ruth Miller. Ruth, I need your help with something. It might get complicated. Anything, Spence. What do you need? Witnesses, people who can testify that I'm competent, that I can manage my own affairs. Consider it done. I'll call Margaret Thompson and Ann Bradley, too. We've all known you for 30 years. Anyone who says you're incompetent will have to get through us first. My second call was harder. I dialed my sister Linda in Phoenix, the sister I hadn't spoken to in 2 years, over a silly argument about Dad's china set. Spence, is that really you? Hi, Linda. I know it's been a while, but I need to tell you something important. I told her everything: the theft, the nursing home deposit, the recording. By the time I finished, Linda was crying. Oh, Spence, I'm so sorry. I always thought Marcus was too smooth, too charming, but I never imagined this. Linda, I might need you to come up here. If this goes to court, I'll need family support. I'll book a flight tonight. And Spence, her voice caught, I'm proud of you for fighting back. Mom and Dad would be proud too. That evening, I was making dinner when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Vanessa, perfectly composed, in a designer coat. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Vanessa, this is unexpected. Mr. Sullivan, we need to talk. Do we? Marcus told me about your conversation today. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I almost laughed. What kind of misunderstanding? May I come in? It's chilly out here. Against my better judgment, I led her into the living room. She sat on my sofa like she owned it, which I supposed she thought she soon would. Mr. Sullivan, Marcus is worried about you. We both are. How thoughtful. This paranoia, these accusations, they're not like you. Has your doctor mentioned anything about early-stage dementia? The audacity stole my breath. Vanessa, I know exactly what you and Marcus are planning. We're not planning anything except what's best for you. Her voice was honey, but her eyes were knives. Marcus loves you so much, it breaks his heart to see you struggling like this. Struggling with what exactly? With reality. You followed me yesterday. You think Marcus is stealing from you. You're making recordings. These are concerning behaviors. I studied her. The polished mask, the calculating eyes. Tell me something, Vanessa. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? The theft, the nursing home, taking over my life. Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold. Mr. Sullivan, I think you need help. I think you need to leave. She stood, smoothing her coat. We're trying to be patient, but Marcus has responsibilities to his business, to our future, to his family's financial security. His family's financial security? I mean the wise management of family assets for everyone's benefit. Everyone meaning you and Marcus. Everyone meaning the people who matter. The words slipped out before she could stop them. The people who matter, I repeated. And I don't matter. She realized her mistake immediately. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. That's exactly what you meant. She headed for the door, then turned back. Mr. Sullivan, Marcus will take care of this with or without your cooperation. It would be easier for everyone if you just accepted help gracefully. Is that a threat? It's advice from someone who cares about your well-being. After she left, I double-checked all my locks and called Patricia's emergency number. They're escalating, I told her. Vanessa just tried to convince me I have dementia, and she basically threatened me. Then we accelerate our timeline, Patricia said. Be in my office first thing Monday morning. And Spence, don't let them into your house again. If they're desperate enough to threaten you, there's no telling what they might do next. As I got ready for bed, I realized I wasn't the same man who had hidden in Marcus's back seat just 5 days ago. That man had been trusting, naive, eager to please. This man was done being anyone's victim. But I also knew Marcus and Vanessa wouldn't give up easily. They'd invested too much into their plan to let it fall apart now, which meant I had to be ready for whatever came next. Monday morning brought unseasonable snow, slicking the driveway and making everything feel unsteady. I arrived at Patricia's office early, clutching a folder stuffed with copies of every document Marcus had ever asked me to sign. My sister Linda was already in the waiting room. She'd flown in despite the storm. You look different, Linda observed. Stronger somehow. I feel different, like I'm finally waking up after a long sleep. Patricia's secretary ushered us into her office. Patricia got right to the point. I've reviewed the recording, she said. It's even better than I hoped. Marcus essentially confessed to elder abuse. But there's something else we need to discuss. She pulled out a thick file. I had my investigator run background checks on both Marcus and Vanessa. What we found is interesting. My stomach tightened. What kind of interesting? Marcus's business isn't as successful as he's led you to believe. In fact, it's been operating at a loss for 8 months. His partnership with Vanessa has been propped up entirely by the money he's taken from your accounts. Linda leaned forward. How much are we talking? Nearly $200,000 over 18 months. The number hit me like a punch. $200,000. Natalie and I had saved that over 43 years of marriage. Every vacation we didn't take. Every restaurant meal we skipped. Every luxury we denied ourselves. There's more, Patricia continued. Vanessa Brooks was married before to an elderly man named Harold Brooks. He died 2 years ago under somewhat mysterious circumstances. Mysterious how, I asked? He changed his will 3 weeks before his death, leaving everything to Vanessa instead of his children from his first marriage. The family contested, claiming elder abuse, but she settled out of court. Linda and I exchanged glances. She's done this before, I whispered. It appears so. And One more thing. The house they want to buy? It's not some dream home. It's an investment property. They plan to flip it. Contractors are already lined up. I sat back, trying to process it all. So they steal my money, put me in a nursing home, flip a house with my savings, and live off the profits? That seems to be this plan, Patricia said grimly. But we can stop them. The recording gives us grounds for criminal charges. The financial records show clear theft. And with Harold Brooks' case, Vanessa might be more than a manipulator. She could be a predator. You mean you might not be her first victim. The room went silent, except for Snow tapping the window. I thought about Vanessa's eyes, her calm threats, the way she'd tried to convince me I was losing my mind. What's our next step? I asked. We file charges immediately. Financial elder abuse, theft, possibly conspiracy. We'll also petition to freeze all your accounts Marcus can access. And the nursing home? We'll get an injunction preventing them from committing you involuntarily. She leaned forward. But Spence, you need to understand. Once we file, there's no going back. This will destroy your relationship with Marcus forever. I looked at Linda, who squeezed my hand. Then I thought about what I'd overheard in Marcus' car, being called pathetic, treated like a burden. Patricia, I said, that relationship was already destroyed. I just didn't know it yet. As we left Patricia's office, Linda linked her arm through mine. Are you sure you're ready for this? She asked softly. Once those charges are filed, Marcus will know you mean business. I'm counting on it, I said. But as we drove home through the thickening snow, I couldn't help wondering if I was truly ready. Because if Patricia was right, if Vanessa was a serial predator, then I wasn't just fighting for my money and independence. I might be fighting for my life. That evening, Linda and I sat in my kitchen, sorting through documents and strategizing. The phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the caller ID. Answer it, Linda whispered. Let's hear what he has to say. I put the phone on speaker. Hello, Marcus. Dad. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. I think we've already said everything we need to say. No, we haven't. I'm coming over. I'd rather you didn't. I'm not asking for permission. I'm coming over, and we're going to settle this like adults. The line went dead. Linda and I exchanged a look. Call Patricia, I said. Tell her Marcus is on his way and he sounds angry. Should we call the police? Not yet, but if he tries to force his way in, we will. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the living room windows. Not one car, two. Marcus and Vanessa had come together. And they didn't look like they were here to apologize. The doorbell rang 3 times in rapid succession, followed by heavy knocking. I peeked through the peephole. Marcus and Vanessa stood on my porch, grim and determined. Mr. Sullivan, Marcus called. Open the door. We know you're in there. Linda moved to the window. There's a third person in the car, she whispered. A man I don't recognize. My blood ran cold. Call Patricia again, now. Linda dialed while I kept watch. Marcus jiggled the doorknob. Dad, he shouted, louder now, aggressive. Don't make this harder than it has to be. We're trying to help you. Mrs. Webb's office, Linda whispered into the phone. This is an emergency. They're at the house. The knocking grew into pounding. I know you can hear me, Dad, Marcus barked. Open this door right now, or I'll call the police and have you taken in for a psychiatric evaluation. My hands shook. They weren't here to apologize or negotiate. They were here to finish what they'd started. Patricia's on her way, Linda said, hanging up, and she's bringing the police. Mr. Sullivan, Vanessa's voice joined Marcus's, sugary sweet. We're here to help you. You're clearly having some kind of mental health crisis, and we're concerned for your safety. Mental health crisis. They were setting the narrative, painting me as the confused old man barricading himself from his loving son. Open the door, or we're coming in, Marcus shouted. I heard the scrape of a key in the lock. My heart stopped. Marcus still had a key. The front door swung open. Suddenly they were inside my home, uninvited, unwelcome. Dad, Marcus's voice echoed. Where are you? We're here to help. Linda and I pressed against the kitchen wall, hidden in the shadows. Footsteps moved through the living room. Check upstairs, Vanessa said. Then came a new voice. Male, unfamiliar, calm. Mr. Sullivan, my name is Dr. Martin Hayes. I'm here to evaluate your mental state. A doctor. They had brought a doctor to declare me incompetent. He's paranoid, Marcus was saying loudly, clearly for the doctor's benefit. Making wild accusations about theft, following people, recording private conversations, classic signs of dementia-related paranoia. I see, Dr. Hayes replied. Has he been evaluated recently? He refuses to see his regular physician, Vanessa added. Claims everyone is conspiring against him. Linda gripped my arm. They were building their case in real time. Footsteps approached. I found them, Marcus called. I stepped out from behind the wall, Linda at my side. Get out of my house. Marcus raised his hands, feigning calm. Dad, Please, we're here to help. I said, get out. The stranger stepped forward. He was middle-aged, professional-looking, with a leather bag. Mr. Sullivan, I'm Dr. Hayes. Your son is concerned about your mental state. My mental state is fine. What's not fine is my son stealing my money and planning to put me in a nursing home against my will. Dr. Hayes exchanged glances with Marcus. Mr. Sullivan, these are serious accusations. Do you have any proof? I almost laughed. As a matter of fact, I do. I pulled out the recorder and pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the room. This money was always going to be mine eventually. I'm just managing it more efficiently. Dr. Hayes' face shifted. Mr. Sullivan, is that your voice on this recording? Marcus flushed. He stopped himself, then corrected. He's been recording private conversations without consent. That's illegal wiretapping. Actually, it's not, I replied. Single-party consent state. You taught me that. Vanessa jumped in, her tone smooth as silk. Doctor, you can see how paranoid he's become. Recording family conversations, making bizarre accusations. The accusations aren't bizarre if they're true. Linda cut in, her voice steady. And I have documents to prove it. Dr. Hayes looked around, weighing the tension. Perhaps we should sit and discuss this calmly. There's nothing to discuss, I said firmly. These people broke into my home. I want them gone. And then I heard it. Sirens outside. Marcus's face went pale. What did you do? I called my attorney and the police. Car doors slammed outside. Heavy footsteps approached the porch. Police! A voice boomed through the front door. Open up! Panic flickered across Marcus and Vanessa's faces. Their carefully planned intervention had just become a crime scene. I opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stood there. Behind them, Patricia, her face grim but satisfied. Mr. Sullivan, the lead officer said, are you all right? We received reports of forced entry. I stepped aside, pointing toward the kitchen where Marcus, Vanessa, and their so-called doctor stood frozen. Officer, I'd like to file charges for breaking and entering, financial elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Dad, Marcus's voice cracked. You don't know what you're doing. I smiled, the first real smile in days. Actually, Marcus, for the first time in years, I know exactly what I'm doing. The look on his face when the officers moved in made every terrifying moment worth it. Justice, it seemed, was finally within reach. 6 months later, I stood in my garden, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, the same garden Marcus had planned to abandon when he sold my house. The same house where I still lived, independent, free. The legal battle had been swift once the evidence piled up. Marcus pled guilty to financial elder abuse in exchange for a reduced sentence, 2 years probation, full restitution, and a restraining order that prohibited him from contacting me. Vanessa's case was different. Patricia's investigator uncovered evidence linking her to 3 other elderly victims besides Harold Brooks. She was awaiting trial on multiple charges: elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy. The so-called Dr. Hayes turned out to be her cousin, a disgraced former physician who had lost his license for insurance fraud. I took a sip of coffee, checked my phone. Linda had sent photos of her new apartment. After everything, she had decided to move back east to be closer to me. Life's too short to hold grudges, she'd said when she arrived with the moving truck 3 months ago. The phone rang. Ruth Miller's name lit up the screen. Morning, Spence. You ready for the big day? Today was the grand opening of the Spencer Sullivan Community Garden, a project I'd funded with part of the restitution Marcus had been ordered to pay back. The irony wasn't lost on me. His theft had inadvertently built something that would benefit seniors for years. Almost ready. Linda's coming by at 9 to help set up. I still can't believe you named it after yourself, Ruth teased. I laughed. Ruth, I spent 70 years putting everyone else's name first. I figured it was time. After hanging up, I walked through the house, straightening things for the celebration. In the dining room, I paused at the mantel. Family photos filled it, most of Marcus at various ages. I'd taken them down after the trial, unable to look at his smiling face without remembering the betrayal. But last week, I'd put up a new photo. Me at the groundbreaking ceremony, shovel in hand, grinning like a kid. For the first time since Natalie died, I looked happy. Genuinely happy. The doorbell rang at exactly 9. Linda stood on the porch with a box of decorations, her smile wide. Ready to celebrate your victory? She asked, hugging me. It doesn't feel like a victory, I admitted. It feels like survival. Same thing, sometimes, she said. We spent the morning setting up tables and hanging banners at the garden site. By noon, dozens of neighbors had gathered. Mayor Thompson gave a speech about community spaces. The local paper took photos. Children ran between the raised beds, already imagining vegetables and flowers. As I watched, I thought about the man I'd been 6 months earlier, trusting, passive, eager to please. That man would have been horrified to send his own son to court. He would have felt guilty for destroying the illusion of a happy family. But this man, this version of me, felt proud. Mr. Sullivan, A young voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to see Emma Patterson, an 8-year-old neighbor, holding a small potted plant. "I brought you this," she said shyly. "My mom says it's for your garden." I knelt. "What kind of plant?" "A sunflower. Mom says they're strong and always face the light." Always face the light. Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, Emma. It's perfect." As the afternoon wound down and neighbors headed home, I found myself alone in the garden. I walked between the raised beds, imagining them full of growth, imagining the community that would bloom along with the plants. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. My heart stuttered, afraid Marcus was violating the restraining order. But it wasn't him. "Mr. Sullivan, this is Detective Morrison with the prosecutor's office. Vanessa Brooks accepted a plea deal today. 15 years. No possibility of parole for 12. Thought you'd want to know. Your courage in coming forward helped us save other potential victims." I read it twice. 15 years. Vanessa would be in her 50s when she got out, too old to prey on vulnerable seniors with the same efficiency. And other victims had been spared because I'd found the courage to fight back. Linda appeared beside me. "Good news or bad?" "Justice," I said, showing her the text. "How do you feel?" I considered the question, relieved, yes, vindicated, but also something else, something I hadn't felt in years. "Proud," I said finally. "I feel proud of myself." "You should," Linda replied. "You saved your own life, and probably saved others too." As we walked back toward the house, I thought about that moment in Marcus's car when I'd first overheard their plan. When they called me pathetic, when I was nothing but a problem to be solved. That version of my future had felt final, inevitable. But I'd learned something in these 6 months. As long as you're breathing, you get to write your own story. And my story was far from over. At 63, I was finally living life on my own terms. I had a community garden bearing my name, friends who valued me for who I was, and a sister who had moved across the country to stand by my side. Most importantly, I had myself, the man I had become, after surviving betrayal, the man who had faced down criminals and predators and won. The man who learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be a victim. That evening, I locked my front door and smiled at the thought of Marcus, somewhere, trying to rebuild, hopefully learning that stealing from your father has consequences. I smiled at the thought of Vanessa behind bars, unable to hurt anyone else. But mostly I smiled because tomorrow I would wake up in my own house, in my own bed, living my own life. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you've faced something similar, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters. The weeks after the community garden opening passed quickly, filled with quiet routines and small joys. Every morning I walked the rows of soil, greeting neighbors who had already begun planting tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. Sunflowers, the ones little Emma had given me, lined the edge of the garden, their green stalks already reaching toward the light. For the first time in years, I felt grounded, present, alive. But healing wasn't just about flowers and sunshine. Healing was about facing the past. One evening, I sat in the living room with Linda. She was knitting while I sifted through a box of old photographs. Natalie's smile beamed up at me from every stack. Our wedding day, Marcus's birth, birthdays, vacations we could barely afford but made work anyway. "You miss her," Linda said softly. "Every day." She set her knitting aside. "Do you ever wonder what she'd say about all this?" I stared at Natalie's photo, her eyes full of warmth even in stillness. She'd tell me I waited too long to stand up for myself, and she'd be right. Linda leaned back, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe, but she'd also be proud. You survived something that would have broken a lot of people." "Survived," I echoed. "Yeah, that's what it feels like." Linda reached over and squeezed my hand. "Spence, surviving is winning." A month later, Patricia called with unexpected news. "Mr. Sullivan, there's been a development." My stomach tightened. What kind of development? "Marcus filed a petition with the court. He's asking to modify the restitution order. Claims it's causing him financial hardship." I laughed bitterly. "Financial hardship? He stole $200,000 from me." "I know," Patricia said calmly. "The judge denied his petition before it even reached a hearing. But I thought you should be aware." "Thank you," I said. And for the first time, the news didn't make my chest tighten with fear. Marcus could file petitions, play the victim, twist the narrative. But the truth was out, and the law was on my side now. After I hung up, I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. The anger was still there, but muted. What I felt most was sadness. Not for myself, but for Marcus. He'd traded his family, his integrity, for greed, and he'd lost. One Saturday, while pulling weeds in the garden, I saw a familiar car creeping down the street. A Honda. My heart skipped. Marcus. He slowed as he passed, his eyes catching mine for a brief moment. No smile, No wave, just a hard, unreadable stare before he drove away. Was that him? Linda asked from across the fence. Yes. Do you think he'll try anything? No. I brush soil from my hands. The restraining order's clear, and he knows I won't hesitate to call the police. But that night, sleep eluded me. I kept replaying that look, anger, resentment, maybe even regret. For the first time in a long time, I wondered if forgiveness would ever be possible. Natalie's voice echoed in memory. Spence, forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. Summer brought color to the community garden. Children's laughter filled the air as vegetables ripened and neighbors traded recipes. Reporters came, wrote stories about resilience, about the power of community. People wanted to call me a hero. But I knew the truth. I hadn't been brave. I'd been desperate. And sometimes, desperation pushes you to fight harder than you ever thought you could. One evening, Emma Patterson ran up, holding a sunflower nearly as tall as she was. Mr. Sullivan, look, it bloomed. I bent down to admire it, bright golden petals, wide and proud. Beautiful, Emma. Just like you said, always facing the light. Her mother joined us, smiling. We wanted to thank you. This garden has given Emma so much confidence. I smiled, but inside I thought about how the garden had saved me too, gave me a reason to keep going when betrayal had nearly broken me. By autumn, Vanessa's trial had concluded. She pled guilty to multiple charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 15 years, no parole for 12. The prosecutor called me personally. Mr. Sullivan, I want to thank you, Detective Morrison said. Your courage gave us the leverage we needed. You saved lives. After the call, I sat in the garden, listening to the rustle of leaves. Saved lives. I had never thought of it that way. But maybe it was true. By refusing to stay silent, maybe I had prevented someone else's father or mother from being targeted. On Thanksgiving morning, Linda and I cooked together for the first time in decades. She made stuffing, just like Mom used to. I basted the turkey, humming under my breath. As we set the table, she paused, looking around my dining room. Feels different here now, she said. How so? Lighter, like the shadows are gone. I glanced at Natalie's photo, then at the new one of me in the garden. Maybe they are. We ate in peace, laughter mingling with the clink of silverware. For the first time in years, Thanksgiving didn't feel like a performance. It felt like home. Winter came, blanketing the garden in snow. But even in stillness, I felt its promise. Come spring, life would return. One night, I sat by the fireplace, pen in hand, writing a letter. Not to Marcus, I wasn't ready for that, but to Natalie, my love. I wrote, I wish you could see the man I've become. I was weak when you left, lost. I let grief blind me, but I found my strength again. I hope, wherever you are, you're proud of me. Tears blurred the ink, but I didn't wipe them away. Some tears are meant to fall. By the time spring returned, the community garden was thriving. Rows of lettuce, beans, and carrots stretched across the beds. The sunflowers stood tall, golden sentinels guarding the space. Neighbors stopped by daily, some to garden, others just to chat. The garden wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to all of us. And for me, that was enough. I still thought of Marcus, of course. Still wondered if there would ever be a day when I could forgive. But forgiveness, I realized, didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean inviting him back into my life. Forgiveness meant I no longer let his betrayal define me, and that was freedom. The last time I walked through the garden that spring, I stopped by the tallest sunflower and whispered, I faced the light, Nat, just like you would have wanted. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. My story wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning.